Hello everyone. Connectathon 25 is starting tomorrow, and if you're in the subscriptions track, you might be wondering about some test tooling. My name is Gino Canessa, and I've written the Argonaut Subscriptions Client test utility and reference implementation, so I thought I'd give a quick walkthrough since I'm not going to be hanging around the track as much this week. So here I am. I've come to subscriptions.argo.run, and that's where you'll find the test implementation. There are links in Confluence and probably all over in the Zulip stream as well. This page here should have everything you need to go through the scenarios, both with the backport and with the R5 implementation. On this video, we're going to go through using the backport. So just some general information. When you come into this page, you'll first come up to this config screen. The first thing of note here is this FHIR server URL field, and that's exactly what it sounds like. FHIR server, in this case, we need to be supporting R4 because that's what we have selected down here. We do have a field for an authorization header. Right now, this does not go through all of the smart authentication. Perhaps that'll be in the next revision. But if you need to add an authorization header or anything for your server, you can add it there. You can also set the server prefer header so that here we have the minimal representation or operation outcome. In this case, we want the representation. And this client host URL, that's just for internal piping of things. So don't mess with that unless you absolutely are sure that you need to. There's some configuration options here as well. Several of them are just UI theming and things like that, so please make that however you like. But in this case, the one that we're looking at is this use backport to R4 switch here. So we want that on so that we're making sure we're using R4. If you scroll down, just for reference, there's a lot of useful links for feedback on this, for the current R5, the backport, etc., etc. So now that we have backport to R4 selected, we can actually use all of the different options that are here, and it'll just switch to using the backport automatically. In this case, before you do that, you need to actually hit connect. Now that we're connected, we can see that we have our FHIR server and our client host connected, and everything is working, and that's much better. So the first scenario is this single patient encounter notification with a REST hook. And so we're going to go through that, and I'll show you how everything works and show you what comes across in the backport. So first, you can see if we go and get the list of subscription topics. If you're an R5, this will go and actually pull all of them. In the backport, we have this operation defined that just gets the topic list. Now, this isn't a full-featured list. It's just a parameters resource that has the canonical URL of the topic. And that's just so that clients have some way of figuring out what's available. Part of that, then, is that the client has to actually understand what that topic is. So in this case, I know that I'm using the if we look here in the response data, we can see we got back the subscription topic canonical, which is the Argonaut Encounters IG. And that's what this demo uses altogether. So in this case, the biggest difference is that this client has to know what allowed filters there are and things like that because it can't access the topic resource. So in this case, since we were looking for the encounter start, we found it. It just gives us the IDs, URLs, things like that. But you can see there's no descriptions, there's no fields that can filter by or anything like that. The next step is that we need to select which patient we're using. In this case, we're just going to pick a random patient. We'll actually look for one with the word test in it so that we hopefully don't mess up anybody's data. And maybe that was a mistake because it's going to take forever. There we go, barrel test. And we want to use that patient. So we can see the request and response again if we want to. There's nothing interesting. It's just doing a patient search and now we have a particular patient selected. This step here you can see happened automatically. This is for piping the notifications. Again, REST endpoints need public-facing URLs, so it created this public-facing URL within the argo.run domain where it'll pipe the notifications back into this UI. So at this point we're ready to create a subscription. We have all the same options we do in R5. We don't need any notification headers in this case. And we can see that we created a subscription. So our request data, here you can see this is an R4 subscription with all the extensions we need. So in this case, we can see that there's, in addition to the payload field, which is there in R4, we have this payload extension, which we're telling it it's ID only. We have REST hook, but in this case we have an extension telling it that we want a heartbeat of every 60 seconds. And the criteria has an extension on it, which is URL and value canonical of this topic. And actually, no, I take that back. This is actually on the subscription resource itself. My apologies, we moved that and I had forgotten about it. So this extension is actually on the subscription itself. But at the end of the day, it returned to us and said that that's all valid, and away we go. In this case, we can see the server actually sent the initial handshake to the endpoint already. And same thing, since there's no notification bundle, we're using a history bundle. And it does have this additional parameters as the focus, as the first entry. And so it has all of the same fields that you would need: subscription URL, subscription topic URL, event counts, status, and the message information. So that way we can still see it is, but you can see there is a little bit less information here. At this point, if we trigger an event, and this is just a setting that we have on in the front, I forgot to turn off, so I'll set that before I go through anything else. But you can see we posted an encounter, and now we have another notification that came through, this time with the event count and bundle event count incremented, and the appropriate full URL for the encounter. So that's a quick run through of the basics. Now, oops, I'm actually going to do the cleanup step there at the end. Highly encourage that. I'm going to go back to the configuration and turn off the client host messages. Those are those pop-ups every time something comes across. Useful in early testing. Feel free to play with those on and off. You can also log them in the console log so that you can see them in your debug dev tools. If you come to the playground area, now this is kind of more free-form for whatever you're trying to do instead of the guided scenarios that go through earlier. In this case, we're going to start off by grabbing the subscription topics as well. And you can see here we only have one because this server only has one implemented. Now we have options for doing email, WebSockets, REST hooks, all different kinds of things, the different subscription types, and adding filters. Now note, when you were using the backport, there is at least one filter that is required. And that's because the criteria field is a mandatory 1.1 and can't be empty. So that is a little bit different. If you are not using this particular canonical URL for the subscription topic, then this is just going to be a text box for you to enter in things like observation, and then you could say, you know, subject equals patient 1, 2, 3, you know, whatever it is. So that would be the format if you're going not using this. In this case, since this client knows what this canonical URL is, it can still go through and ask for these nice filters. So in this case, we can come through and same thing, we can ask for a given name of test, and hopefully there's at least one patient with that in the server right now. and there are plenty. So we can grab a patient. Oops, grab a patient. And now we have this nice filter that it filled out. We're saying patient is equal to that. And if we add the filter, that's now a valid subscription to create. All right, so with that, happy testing. If you have any questions, please feel free to ping me on Zulip. I will be around. I'm just in another track this time. So if anything, please let me know. And good luck, everyone. Cheers.